Welcome to Food and Facilities, an online show on CentralValleyTalk.com that covers agribusiness safety and compliance news for agriculture, food processing, food and beverage, and manufacturing industries. In this episode, we'll be discussing From Farms to Incubators with award-winning journalist, filmmaker, and founder, Amy Wu. Welcome to Food and Facilities. I'm Tara Sweeney. Make sure to subscribe to Food and Facilities on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Spotify for all safety, compliance, and innovation news for agribusiness that includes agriculture, food processing, food and beverage, and manufacturing. You can watch us live on CentralValleyTalk.com every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm here with my guest, Amy Wu. She's an award-winning journalist, filmmaker, and founder of From Farms to Incubators. You can reach her at Amy at farmstoincubators.com or check out farmstoincubators.com for more information on her book and documentary. Amy?
Thanks so much, Tara, for having me today. Really honored to be on your show and really excited about it. From Farms to Incubators, definitely check us out on our website and Facebook because we mostly update a lot of the things that we're doing and initiatives on those platforms. But From Farms to Incubators is a platform basically that serves as a community for women engaged in the sector of agri-food tech. And we have a mission. I have a mission of getting more girls and young women involved in ag tech, which is a fast growing sector, especially when it comes to leadership and decision-making roles. A big part of it is the storytelling, which I think you touched upon. We have a new book that just came out recently called From Farms to Incubators, Women Innovators Revolutionizing How Our Food is Grown, and also have a longstanding documentary that's been award-winning and that's been super popular. I think it's screened at over 200 venues, including South by Southwest. So thanks very much for having me here today.
Can you give a little background about who you are and what brought you to work From Farms to Incubators?
Well, I actually started From Farms to Incubators. I didn't plan on it, but my own background is I'm a journalist by training, a professional journalist, and I've been reporting for decades and decades. In 2016, I was assigned to go to the Salinas Valley region in California to cover local news for a local newspaper there called The Californian as part of the coverage agriculture and local government. So at the time, back in 2016, I should say, the local government really made it a priority to develop the ag tech sector, back then pretty young and nascent, in the hopes that it would actually increase a knowledge-based economy and offer more jobs to the next generation. And I just started to observe myself that there were not a lot of women in agriculture, especially leadership roles, whether it be food, farming, and this new sector of ag tech, and started to ask people, do you know of any minority women entrepreneurs in ag tech? And at the same time, I answered a call out for a grant from the International Center for Journalists, searching for stories of women business owners who are women of color. And I said, I'd like to do a short documentary and also do some stories of profiling women in the space. And they gave me the fund. The only issue at the time was that I didn't have anybody at hand. I wasn't sure if I would have anybody, but I had an intuition that women who create the technologies for farmers do exist. And I was right. So it started with maybe 3 or 4 women. It started with my persistent question of, do you know of any minority women, minority women entrepreneurs in ag tech? That created the documentary. It created a few short stories in the newspaper, but I just couldn't stop there. And the reason why is because when I would screen the film in the early days, there would be a silence. I think, farmers, investors, people working in agribusiness, the women themselves were surprised that there were women in the space. They actually didn't know that there was a new generation of women creating these kind of innovations to help farmers. And the women would actually look at each other and say, oh my gosh, I didn't realize there were other women in this space. Can I connect with them? So I saw a real need for a community and a network and a hub to connect women interested in the space, working in the space. And I saw storytelling as the main vehicle and platform to do that. And I just couldn't give up on the stories. I would get more and more emails and phone calls between 2017 and 2018 saying, have you heard of this woman? Have you spoken to this woman who co-led a company? And it just kept increasing. And I'm not sure if it's because there were just more women in the space or because nobody had told their stories before. But I started to say, I really want to collect their stories and their voices in the form of a book. I thought a book is definitely something that maybe 50 years from now somebody might pick up, whether or not it be digital or not. Not sure what libraries will look like 50 years from now, but I thought this will give a lasting voice to this time period when there's this paradigm shift. We are seeing slowly, surely, maybe at a slow pace, more women enter this space as well. So it went from storytelling into a movement and into an initiative to want to get more women involved. Yep.
And you even have a hub of contact information for these different entrepreneurs on your website if people want to add their name or if they'd like to contact anyone on your list.
Yeah, actually, thanks for bringing that up, because what Farms to Incubators has developed into, and as we go into 2022, is providing more resources and tools for women who are in the space or who want to get into the space. So we have a searchable directory that's created by Airtable because we want to share this, as many people as possible to share this directory. It's embeddable on any website. It's free. And I'm not the only person who worked on it. And this gets to the heart of the work that I do. Is I collaborated with a group of women who have a similar passion and who are women who are in the ag tech space, including Ag Launch, Connie Bowen, Pam Marone of Marone, who launched Marone Bio Innovations a while ago. It's a public company. We all collected our names that we ourselves were collecting and put it into one big pot and said, let's share this out. So that's a really good example of the work that I'm excited about doing. I really like to collaborate with other people, especially women who share a similar passion.
And you touched on that it originally started as a documentary, and we have a little trailer from the documentary that we'd like to share with our viewers right now.
Great.
I always wanted to have a farm because food is very cultural for me. My family's from the Philippines. I'm a first-generation American. That was the way I knew how to express my love.
I came here from Vietnam as a refugee, and witnessing the cost of malnutrition, I decided I would look for a solution.
My parents are immigrants, and they were field workers when they came to the U.S.
My grandfather was a farmer where he had his own farm that he fed his family with.
When you have a diverse group of people, decision-making is more robust, and you get better outcomes, better creativity, because you have different perspectives.
I think maybe you just get used to being a minority and you stop thinking about it after a while. Everyone's an outsider in their own way, I think. Once you're able to focus on the successes and the message that you want to get out there, then the conversation becomes a lot easier.
In America, less than 1% of the population actually farms anymore. So we have a very, honestly, precarious situation where we have an aging population of farmers and not very many people who are doing it.
And it's very, very important that we make this sustainable. So we are putting technology to work to solve that problem.
The story started more than 5 years ago when Diane and I met. Both of us were very passionate about the way in which we can arm community members with a way to stay one step ahead of disease.
We've built a really simple soil test for growers and farmers to be able to look at the biology of their soil. The soil biology plays a huge role in yield and crop health, soil health and sustainability.
at least 3 times a week. We're out in the fields in Salinas. Getting in that feedback directly from our customer base, the growers, who are in desperate need of this technology. So we are making our technology fit the needs of the growers.
So our company, we do equipment tracking, timekeeping, and field scouting. It's a mobile app, so all the data collection is just through your smartphone.
Would you change anything right now as it is?
Yeah, but like the same structure is just like...
Trying to implement that software and telling them we can give them something that works that's better. They've also had other companies come in and say that, but a lot of times it's been companies from Silicon Valley. They come in from a different perspective, and so what makes us unique is knowing the ag side and knowing their processes.
Yeah.
We'll break it. But you guys will make it better.
Vitamin A deficiency disorders is just easy to solve, but it's still so prevalent. When I was little in Saigon, my mother, she would get the fruit and dye the rice with it. And the color of it is so strikingly red. I just have the hunch that the fruit was really rich. Red melon, the fruit to me that stand out. I came up with a way so that the farmers can then use whatever they have to make the oil and then keep that oil in their household.
It's important that the field be diversified and that women be at the table. Women don't get treated well unless there are enough, there's a critical mass.
My daughter is 10-year-old. She asks me, what is it that you're doing? And when I share that with her, she has this spark in her eye that, wow, I didn't know that's how you grew strawberries. Once the spark is there, they will find most innovative ways to solve things.
That trailer was very informational on not only the documentary, but the book that you've been writing. What are some things that you learned while researching the book that you might not have necessarily learned during the documentary?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I learned actually quite a lot about the women themselves. I mean, despite their individual unique stories and backgrounds and really diverse backgrounds, I really found some common threads. I talked to a lot more women for the book, certainly. I mean, the documentary had maybe anywhere from 4 to 8 women, but for the book, I actually talked to 30 plus women, including some female farmers. I wanted to make sure that female farmers were in there too, because farmers are the ones using these innovations actually, and they need to be able to say that I like that innovation, it works, in order for ag tech to work. So I learned that the common threads with the women I talked to include that they all really care about food production, addressing climate change and sustainability, and they also really care about wanting to make money. They want to launch successful companies. Most of them actually did not come from a background of agriculture and farming families, and they did not come from a background of entrepreneurship either. But they all really want to solve big impact issues that threaten agriculture. They also really wanted to make a difference in the food systems as well. So I started to match up like the women, like the problem in agriculture with the actual woman and her innovation. And so a couple of interesting, I'll just give a couple of examples today, but like when it comes to soil health, some farming practices like the application of chemicals or maybe over application of fertilizers and tillage can have bad effects or negative effects on the soil, increase carbon emissions and decrease nutrients for the soil. And that overall impacts the farmer because you see a decrease in production. Well, I think farmers are seeking soil testing kits that are accurate and affordable. So one of the 2 women that I profiled are in the documentary, Diane Wu, not related to me, and Purnima Parameswaran, who started a company called Trace Genomics. They create soil testing kits that use gene sequencing to measure the health of the soil and detect pests and diseases. Another big problem that growers are facing is a severe labor shortage as well. I mean, the average age of farmers now is upward towards 60, and field workers are aging out, and their sons and daughters are not replacing them either. So another big area of ag tech is robotics and automation. I spoke to several women who actually are in that area, including a woman who co-launched Bear Flag Robotics. They make an autonomous self-driving tractor that does a lot of reduced tillage work with the goal of actually lowering the cost of farming through automation. And then one young woman that I really like to actually note is a young woman named Ellie Sims. I met her when she was like just out of college in the Midwest, but she founded a company called the B Corps that uses this mobile app and technology and an infrared technology to measure the health of beehives. And so why is that important? Because that really helps the $6 billion almond industry in California that depend on bees to pollinate their plants. So I really enjoyed making the connection between their stories and also the problems that growers are facing, to kind of geeking out and talking a bit about the innovation, because I also love to learn about the innovation. But more importantly, I wanted to talk about who these women are, like as people, what motivated them, some of them to move across the country to start an ag tech startup. I mean, there's so many challenges in starting up a startup anyway, like getting funding, building a team of people, and also just like taking a huge risk. I mean, they are doing this full time, putting their heart and soul into it. So I really wanted to learn more about them. And I became very inspired by most of their stories and decided that I wanted to continue collecting their stories. And from Farms to Incubators, our goal is to continue to collect these stories ongoing so that there is a big archive, ultimately, I think, of all of their stories. And not just in California, across the US, Midwest, Northeast, and maybe someday internationally as well. So, I think that even the big picture of this is that I think I'm a big fan of ag tech. I do think it solves problems for growers, but I also think that it's a platform for women leadership and empowerment as well.
Yeah. How do you see ways to involve more women in ag tech?
Yeah, that's a big opportunity. And I think the heart and soul of what I want to develop Farms to Incubators into addresses that. There's a big need for connection and network and community, as I said earlier. So we're looking to use things like the directory and in the future more programs, in person, maybe virtual, to bring women together, either women who already work in the space or those who want to, and give them a community where they can share their challenges, but also share their triumphs. I think it's a good networking opportunity for women to work together too. I mean, an ag tech startup might say, I really need a woman who's an agronomist, or I really need to hire a female engineer. Well, why not have that network and give them that opportunity? I think secondly, mentorship is critical. I mean, I faced a lot of, in my book, I kept saying, I wrote in few places, these women are climbing Everest. I also faced a lot of struggles myself in coming up with supporters and funding for the film, for the book, for the initiative, and similar challenges. I mean, challenges, but different challenges than the women I write about. But I think that there's a real need for women to support each other and also be a mentor and share their own stories. And I try to make time for younger women. From Farms to Incubators, it's myself and a couple of interns that are young women who have really thrived in contributing. I think offering opportunities, but also sharing your own stories. And I think importantly to consciously carve out the time to do that. We all are really busy trying to grow our own companies and grow our own portfolio, but I strongly believe in giving back to the next generation, especially young women, maybe from high school, middle school, all the way into 30 years old. I think that's a critical age group, big, broad age group, because that's when, you know, a lot of decisions are made. What do I want to get into? What do I want to be when I grow up? So I see mentorship and education really important.
What are some innovations that you've seen that are really interesting to you personally?
So I mentioned a couple. I slipped a couple in when I talked about the women a little bit earlier with the soil testing kit and the robotics and automation. I think robotics and automation is really cool, because I do see that field workers, it's tough to get field workers now to harvest a plant and to do the labor. And I think without that, farmers are at a loss of bottom line, and food gets wasted. You know, when it's not harvested, it's orphaned and wasted. So I think that there's a balance between training people who can operate the robotics and automation, having the robots who have the ability to pick all kinds of fruits sensitively and, you know, with knowledge. It's tough to, actually, I hear that it's really tough to still find robots to pick certain kinds of fruit. So I think that is pretty fascinating. The area of seed development, developing seeds, Tara, that are farmer friendly, are also of great interest. There's one company in the book called Inari, and they're developing seeds that are maybe more pest resistant or need less water. So I see that as another opportunity. The broad brush of ag bio is also another area to look at as well. So I think it's really broad. When you say ag tech is a huge umbrella of a lot of things. It could be vertical farming, you know, aquaponics, and just a lot underneath that as well. But I see a great need, because the world population is estimated to be about 10 billion by 2050. So growers are under a lot of pressure internationally to produce enough food for the population, or the population themselves will have to find a way to produce their own food then as well. Yeah.
What is something you wish more people knew about ag tech?
I wish people would ask questions a little bit more about ag tech. And I think part of the responsibility is on the ag tech industry to connect with consumers, and realizing that consumers are an important part of this, because they're the ones in the end that are purchasing the food and eating. We all eat, you know, and there's a growing interest from average people on where does my food come from? How is it grown? Who's growing it? So I think it's a conscious effort for the industry, whether it be farmers or innovators, to find a way to tell their stories to consumers and say, do you know how your strawberry was grown? Or do you know how that your salad came about? And to use that as a learning opportunity. And I think, why is that important? I think communication is important, because then consumers have a greater appreciation of how much goes into growing their food. And I think to some extent, still, a lot of people are like, how come these strawberries are $6 or $8? Well, a lot went into that. Actually, if you want to have good, healthy food, a lot goes into that, the farming of it, the packaging of it, and also understanding who are the people growing the food as well. And what is ag tech? To this day, I have a lot of people asking me, I have no idea what that is. That sounds really foreign to me. Well, I say, if you drive past the thousands of acres in the Midwest, it could be a self-driving tractor. If you look up in the sky, you could see drones that are inspecting farmland. Have you ever heard of Bitcoin? Well, Bitcoin isn't just cryptocurrency. It also is used to track food from the field to the shelf for food safety. So there's a lot of aha, wow moments if more of us from different industries came together to talk to each other and to say, let's share what each of us is doing in this food ecosystem.
And you mentioned that there's upwards of 30 different female entrepreneurs featured in your book. What are some of their specialties within the different types of ag tech that you just mentioned?
So I would say their specialty is very broad, because I think that, first of all, they wanted to launch this company and be successful with the companies they are in. They all focus on different kinds of problems. Like I noted, the soil testing kit is specifically for farmers who want accurate information about that. And I would say each of them comes with some expertise. Like I'll note one woman named Martha Montoya of Ag Tools in the book. She doesn't come from a farming background. She comes from actually the background of education and also cartooning, but she fell into agriculture when she came to the US from Bogota, Colombia. And she, throughout the years, I think, saw a need for farmers to get important information about commodities, whether it be weather, politics, transportation. And she developed a SaaS powered app, and where, you know, the click of a button, you're able to get, like, a farmer who has a cell phone can immediately get that information. So there isn't a one-stop shop as to their expertise. They all have different skills. Some of them have more farming skills, because maybe there are a couple of women who come from farming families too. But there are other women who worked at big agribusiness companies that I won't name, but they already have worked in the industry. Some women never came, they just come from an entrepreneurial background, like from my memory, Miku Jiha, who had launched other startups, not in ag tech. So I would say very broad background, but all the commonalities, as I noted previously, are that they care about making a difference in the food system. They care about addressing climate change and sustainability. And they really are very ambitious and persistent and want to be really successful in their startups as well. And I would say there's a good portion of them that really want to give back to the next generation of women. And they publicly will say that, talk about the gender disparity. I will say there's a portion of the women who don't want to talk necessarily about the gender disparity. They just say that we have an innovation that works and it's great. And I don't want to say that it's because I'm a woman or whatever. They just pretty much want to focus on that. So it's a pretty broad spectrum of voices, but I think each of their perspectives is actually quite valuable and interesting when it comes to writing about them. I would also say they come from different ages. I did say a lot of them were younger, which is true, but we have women all the way from like college age to into their 50s and 60s. And I think while age should not be necessarily a factor in entering anything, I do think that there is so much opportunity for people to share their different experiences of being an entrepreneur in ag tech. There are some more senior women like Pam Marone, who started a company like 25 years plus years ago, who can talk about the many challenges she faced just launching that company at a time when there were almost no women in the space. Yeah, and I think that there's this book is now, it was published recently, but I've been working on these stories for 2+ years. You know, what's next is the important question, I think, too, is that I'm seeking more women to profile. I'm hoping to put this together in an online digital directory, and hopefully we'll have supporters and founders who in agribusiness who also want to support this as well. So I think I'm confident there'll be more and more diversity when it comes to the innovations and also the stories as well. Yeah.
And you're having a book tour all through November in different areas of California, and we'll bring up the book tour dates and times and locations. Can you give a little plug for your book tour and what you're hoping to share with people?
Well, I hope the book tour was created very much by myself, because during this period of the pandemic, you know, a lot of the talks are virtual now, which I've done probably 60 to 70 talks since March in April when the book first came out. But I feel like connecting with people in person was really important, and having this book tour was critical, especially in addressing talking to some younger people. And it's a 7-day book tour where I'm going to go to at least 8 events. My focus and my hope is that I'll talk to a lot of youth, I would say, and we start out in Cal State Stanislaus in Turlock. And we'll be spending quite a lot of time actually at that university screening the film, doing readings, and also talking with various classes. They have a growing food program there, and young people who are seeking opportunities in the workforce. So that'll be really exciting to talk to the professors and the students, I think, at that Cal State University. And at Fresno State, we have a pretty big talk as well. That's actually, I'm told, it has been sold out, you know, as well. And hopefully we'll also see some students and some faculty there, and maybe some farmers and a range of people, but that's next. And then I really wanted to return to the Salinas Valley, at where this project first started, to do some discussions and book readings. So I'll be at Digital Nest, which is a really awesome organization that trains youth 14 to 24 years old on tech skills, including ag tech, actually. So we'll have a talk there, and also a talk at some of the bookstores as well in the Salinas Valley, and at the Monterey County Ag Museum in King City, which I'm personally really excited about that, because I didn't even know that there was an ag museum there, which is really neat. Yeah, and the other exciting thing I would want to share is that there'll be some filming of this tour through Hearst TV, and they'll be actually doing a video of it afterwards and showing it as well. So that's super exciting. Yeah.
Is there anything else you would like to share with our viewers and listeners?
Just that I'm really excited about the next phase of growing from farms to incubators. I think sometimes of a startup as very much like in agriculture, when you plant a seed and you take care of the seed and your garden, rather, not just a single seed, but a garden, and you don't know how it's going to turn out, and it really evolves over a period of time. You can hope for what it is, and you can try to predict, but you don't know, and it changes over time. And I think the beauty of this whole project was that I didn't expect it ever to be what it is today. But it also brings in some of my greatest passions, which is definitely telling undertold stories of people whose voices were not heard before, and also amplifying those voices, and also the power of seeing how those stories can create change over time. I think over the course of 5 years, I have seen the women who have shared their stories and been gracious to share their stories just rise to another level. They've grown their companies. They've also developed, more innovation. And I think it's like a step-by-step process to create change is what I'm getting at. And I do hope for the day when there will be more women sitting in the boardroom in decision-making roles when it comes to food and farming. Women already play a big role in the food system, so it should be why aren't there more of theirs? And I think that there will be more in the future. And lastly, I would say that I am not an island. I gave you an example of the directory. I work as a collective, and I love working with organizations and people who share a similar passion. So always looking to hear from other folks, and hopefully you follow us on our website and also on our Instagram and on our Facebook. During the book tour, we will be sharing some special video clips and also special photographs from that tour as well.
Thank you for joining me, Amy, and it was great to be able to feature you and the work that you're doing.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. And now we'll have a moment of silence for our Black Lives Matter community.